Cat Saves the Kids is a straight-to-DVD kids movie. Already we know this is going to be fun. And it was released in 2015 and stars Derek Savage. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I think I put way too much energy into that intro. Now, Cool Cat Saves the Kids is a really weird movie, and some people don't even consider it as a movie, and it's easy to see why. So much so, I can't really do this justice by going by category like I usually do. Usually I try to talk about the story, then the characters, and then the cinematography / animation / action, depending on the genre, and then I go ahead and maybe talk about the soundtrack, and then I start to wrap it up. That is what I usually do. But today I'm going to have to sort of warp it around a little bit, because I don't think I'd be able to do this movie justice just by going category by category. So today, I'm going to be doing something a bit different, and I'm going to be going through the movie scene by scene. And before we can even get to the movie itself, let's just talk about the main menu. Jeez, talk about an acid trip. It's very hypnotic with all the many different colors and the way it's like this weird, warped kind of like room, and it's constantly moving with all the different colors. It feels very hypnotic. And speaking of production value, let's look at the DVD cover of this movie. And I'm saying DVD because this movie doesn't have a Blu-ray release. And honestly, it feels like it was made by an amateur, because I'm only 16 years old, and using a free software called GIMP, even I could make a more professional DVD cover than this. And speaking of the DVD case, don't you just love it when the DVD case really emphasizes on two celebrities that are really only in the movie for like a few minutes? These celebrities that the movie is really emphasizing on is Vivica A. Fox and Eric Estrada. Now, I can't say I'm familiar with Eric Estrada in anything else, however, I am vaguely familiar with the name of Vivica A. Fox. I remember her as playing as one of the side characters in an animated film I'm pretty sure none of you have heard of, called Tortoise vs. Hare, which is kind of like a spin-off / new sequel-like take on the old original Fable. And since I feel like one of the only people on Earth who've actually heard of the film, I think why not spread some awareness and giving it a look. I think I might review this movie sometime. Definitely better than this movie, that's for sure. But anyway, I only bring that up because it's the only thing I know Vivica A. Fox from, but apart from that, no, I don't know her from anything else. Okay, enough chit-chat on the DVD case and the menu and all that stuff. Now let's get into the movie itself. The first thing I have to say right off the bat is that this movie probably has one of the, if not the worst soundtracks I've ever heard in a movie. Ever. The main opening theme is either really creepy or really annoying. Seriously, how do you mess up a soundtrack? Nice use of the Comic Sans font, by the way. Very professional. So the movie begins with a bunch of little young kids complaining in front of terrible green screen effects that they need Cool Cat's help because they're complaining about bullies and everything. And it turns out that Cool Cat immediately saves the day, completely off screen for some reason, and we can read in a newspaper that Kids loves him. Yes, I'm totally the first person to make that joke. Now, as much as we all joke about the Kids loves him and the improper grammar in this little moment, what I really want to know is why on earth can you read about the Kids loves him news in the Catnip newspaper? Seriously, this newspaper reads Catnip News. How is it that no one else noticed this? Somebody, please tell me, why does it say Catnip News in the newspapers? Gee whiz, I'm only a few seconds into this movie and I'm already yelling. Oh my god. Let's keep going. So the real movie begins with stock footage, establishing shots, as we are introduced to our main protagonist, Cool Cat.
Wow, this looks great!
Now this guy calls himself Cool Cat, and everyone around him calls him Cool Cat. However, that name isn't really accurate. In fact, quite the contrary, this guy's pretty annoying. In fact, I've actually seen more memes and jokes pointed to Cool Cat than I have with Jar Jar Binks with Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace. That is not a good sign. Now I say annoying because he's really just this big, overbearing, loud, anthropomorphic orange catsuit character, and he likes to take into consideration that screaming loudly over the top and waving his arms everywhere equals as high quality children entertainment. Now, if you want my opinion on someone that is legitimately cool, then I would have to say Arnold as the T-800 from Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I think the Arnold T-800 from T2 is one of the coolest characters I've ever seen. Now, this is something I would consider cool. Everything from his clothes, his boots, and his motorcycle, from his shotgun to his sunglasses, right down to his catchphrases.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Now that is cool! Hell, even other anthropomorphic animals can be cool. Want an example? Nick Wilde from Zootopia. That guy was also really cool. He was just incredibly entertaining. Much rather be watching that movie. Now let's look at Cool Cat. He is a grown man in an orange anthropomorphic cat suit that likes to walk around with children, screaming at the top of his lungs while waving his arm everywhere, using really old, dated phrases, and has some of the worst dialogue I've ever heard in all of cinema.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Okay, well, not the worst, but you know what I mean. So Cool Cat decides to invite a young girl named Maria to come and play with her. A grown man in an orange anthropomorphic catsuit is asking a young girl to play with him. That is really creepy when you think about it.
I'll get it. Thanks. My hands are full.
Yeah, and I absolutely love how as he says this, he shows his clearly empty palm hands. Cool Cat promotes lying, everybody! So Cool Cat and Maria decide to come up with an idea of creating a bunch of signs to try and help people to help vote Cool Cat as school president. And this makes absolutely no sense. In all seriousness though, seriously, how does this work? For starters, everyone else is asking this question and I'm asking the same thing. How old is Cool Cat? Now clearly it is a grown man playing in this suit. However, how old is this character supposed to be? Judging by the fact that he goes to school towards the end of the movie, I guess he's supposed to be an elementary kid. But at the same time, around halfway through the film, there's a short shot of him driving a car. He also talks and acts like a kid, like asking for permission and all this other stuff, which makes me believe that he is supposed to be a kid. Again, he drives a car at one point. And even then, if he's a kid, how is it that that's going to let you become a school president? Isn't that kind of like a school student trying to become a school principal when they're only in 5th grade? I'm pretty sure you can't do that. But I guess it doesn't matter because whether he is a kid or an adult, he can't trust the system! That was a terrible reference! Gee whiz, I'm really loud in this video. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. When I was watching footage of this movie around the first 5 minutes, I honestly thought that this was some old, dated, failed, straight-to-TV Nickelodeon movie, TV show thing that never really went anywhere and came out in the 90s. But then I found out that it came out in 2015. The same year as Inside Out. Now that's embarrassing.
This is the coolest office I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't know about anyone else, but all I see is the front door.
How could we go wrong?
Do I seriously have to tell you what happened the last time an orange anthropomorphic cat said that? So as these two just, sit there for a while, we are introduced to our new evil antagonist of the movie, Butch the Bully. No, that is literally his name. But I'm not that kind of person, so I'm just going to call him Butch. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. Butch's character is one of my biggest problems with this entire movie. Because in this movie, Butch is really just a one-dimensional stereotype. Now, in other movies, in other genres, it is kind of annoying when you get the typical bad villain, like the really weak villain in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. However, in this kind of movie, it's a really serious problem. If you're going to make a movie about bullying and how to prevent it and how to deal with it and how to understand it and all this stuff, why not make Butch a very complex and very fleshed out character? give him a motivation, because bullies aren't just bullies for the sake of it. Usually they have some sort of motivation. Maybe they got inferior grades in comparison to other students and they take their frustration out on those students that got the better grades. Maybe they have really abusive parents and they use their bullying as a defense mechanism. Or maybe these guys are bullied themselves. Usually bullies have a understandable and identifiable reason for being a bully and reacting the way they do. And so why not bother exploring that aspect of bullying? Because it would help kids be able to understand why bullies exist and why they act the way they act. But all they do is just look at bullies as one-dimensional stereotypes that are always terrible people. Bullies are also three-dimensional human beings with emotions and motivations. And so if you're going to make a movie about bullying, you should explain that so the kids can understand that. So making Butch a one-dimensional bully stereotype that has dialogue like this...
They're like picking on someone. I love being a bully. I don't like the sandcastle, so take this. I don't care because I'm a bully. I'm a bully, and I'll be back.
That's a really, really bad idea if you're trying to spread awareness about bullying to kids. And this movie just treats them like criminals. I'm not joking or exaggerating with that statement. Butch is arrested not once, but twice in this movie. One other problem I have with this movie, and this isn't as bad as the bully, but it's another more technical problem I have with this movie, and that is the audio recording, the boom operating. Now, I don't know what was the cause of this problem. Maybe the operators didn't know what they were doing, maybe they weren't as experienced, maybe the machine was turned on a bit too high, maybe Butch was talking too loud, maybe the boom was facing an incorrect angle, but whatever the cause is, the audio recording really isn't that good. And the reason why I say that is because when you're using recording software, I use stuff like Mixcraft or Sony Vegas 13, and one thing I've learned from experience is that there's always this special bar that goes from green, yellow to red, and when you're recording something, it usually alters between to try and indicate how stable the volume of your sound is. And if you're in the green or yellow, you're safe. You're in the clear. It's good quality. However, if you reach the red, your music or sound effects or dialogue or whatever you're recording is going to sound really disordered, and it's not going to sound quite right because it's up too loud. And so what you need to do is that you need to lower it, and so it sounds more stable. This movie doesn't do that. I always feel like I always know when that meter is hitting the red zone.
They're like picking on someone.
The way Butch says, I feel like, it really sounds like that the meter just hit the red zone. It's kind of distorted a little bit. And that is a massive, serious technical issue, because this is something that inexperienced people do, and it's really unprofessional. And that kind of sound quality just screams out, I'm an amateur, this guy, right here. So Butch decides that he's going to pick on Maria by texting her, cyberbullying her, because he feels like it. But when Maria receives it, she doesn't recognize Butch's name.
Hey, Cool Cat, I just got a text, but I don't know who it is.
Which is kind of a plot hole when you really think about it, because later on, like a few minutes later, she does seem to recognize him. So how can you recognize Butch and even recognize his name when somebody else says it, but not recognize his name when you see his name in the phone? And this leads to another question. If Maria doesn't know Butch, then how on earth does Butch know Maria's phone number? How does Butch have access to her phone? Unless Butch is a really young computer hacker. Gee, and I thought Justin Long was young for a computer hacker. Not that Justin Long, that Justin Long! I digress. Now we come to our first piece of advice in this movie. Now since this is a movie about bullying, hopefully this movie gives great advice.
Hey, Cool Cat, I just got a text, but I don't know who it is.
Well, there's only one way to find out. So, see what it says.
What did you just say?
So, see what it says.
What?
See what it says.
Wow, I am probably going insane at the moment, but... Did Cool Cat just encourage a young girl to open a text message from a stranger? Yes, as you would expect, this is indeed a horrible idea and should never be encouraged to kids. The only time I read messages from strangers on the internet are the comments on my YouTube videos. But when it comes to iMessage or Hangouts or Google Gmail or any of that stuff, I avoid strangers like the plague. Opening text messages from strangers is insanely dangerous. They could send you something extremely inappropriate. Or worse, what if this guy's a predator? Actually, this is a problem that the entire movie has. There's a lot of times when a character gives really bad advice about dealing with bullies or just bad advice in general. And so you know what? I'm going to keep a tally mark, and every single time I hear something that is bad advice in this movie, this counter is going to go up. That is one. Let's see how long it takes before we can get to the second one.
It could be good news. I love to get good news.
Yeah, me too. What if it's a secret contest and I just won a whole bunch of money?
And we can take a nice trip together.
That's a splendid idea. We could travel all over the world.
Yippee!
Okay, so now you're encouraging kids to open up messages on the internet that says you won a whole bunch of money, even though you did absolutely nothing to earn it. Even as a little kid, I knew that was a scam. It's stuff like this that makes me really glad that apps like AdBlock exist, because that can be a lifesaver. You should never fall for advertisements that says you ran a whole bunch of money when you did absolutely nothing to get it on random websites. Because falling for that kind of advertisement is basically begging a computer to get hacked, or a virus, or anything like that. Wow, that was fast.
And we can take a nice trip together.
Okay, I know this is going to sound really nitpicky, but why did the audio quality of Cool Cat's voice suddenly change? Most of the time he sounds like that he's clearly in from some sort of microphone. I heard that he's got a microphone built into his mask or helmet or whatever you want to call the head. However, that one line just sounds like he was just recording it in a big wide open space that's got lots of echoes and reverbs. It's really off-putting, and I found it impossible to not notice when I watched the film myself.
You're ugly and your hair looks like rat hair. Why would somebody say that?
That is one of the stupidest insults I've ever heard in my entire life. How did you find that offensive? And even if you did find it offensive, can't you show resilience? Whenever someone insults me on the internet, I just ignore it.
Hey, Cool Cat. I just got a text from the same person. Should I open it?
Okay, now you're going to state the obvious, right, Cool Cat?
Sure. See what it says.
That's 3. Already. If you got a text message from the same person who just insulted you literally just a few seconds ago, why the hell would you open it? Okay, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh, and maybe Cool Cat has a good plausible explanation for this, right, don't you, Cool Cat?
You know, maybe they feel bad about that really mean text, and now they want to apologize.
You serious?
Alright, it's official. Cool Cat is an idiot.
And I'm Cool Cat, and I love all kids.
Yeah, unless your name is Butch. Seriously, within like about a minute to a few seconds of saying this, he immediately hates on Butch as if he's nothing but a terrible person. Bit hypocritical, don't you think, Cool Cat? But even ignoring that line has been so funny and creepy at the same time. Over the last year, that line has been a massive meme.
And I love all kids.
We're only 7 minutes into this movie, and I'm 6 pages into the script.
This text says that I'm fat and ugly. Am I fat and ugly?
Anyone else notice that the word ugly was the main insult for both the first and second insult that Maria was sent? I think Butch was low on ideas for insults.
Why did they call you Cool Cat? They should call you Dumb Cat.
Well, considering the stuff that Cool Cat's been encouraging and telling Maria just a few seconds ago, that's actually pretty accurate. But really, that's the best you can come up with? If you're going to try and change the first name and turn it into something insulting, why not at least be clever about it? Like having another insulting name that starts with the letter C, like Crap Cat. So then Butch decides to run away, and then Cool Cat recognizes him. But then why didn't you recognize his voice on the phone? If you recognize him by appearance, then why not by voice? Actually, the odd thing is that this is a mistake that even good movies make sometimes. Even movies like Die Hard, which is considered one of the best action films of all time, and yet even this movie makes a mistake at one point. Remember that scene where John McClane ran into Hans, and then Hans tries to trick John McClane by putting on an accent and try to be one of the hostages, and John McClane falls for it for a few minutes? A lot of people have pointed out that even with the accent, you can still tell it's Hans because the actor of Hans has a really, really distinguishable voice. But then again, many people, myself included, consider Die Hard to be one of the best movies ever made. So if even great movies do this sometimes, I guess I can let this slide.
He's always bullying somebody, and he has no friends. That's not fun.
Okay, this line really annoys me. A very good friend of mine named Sawyer Sable made a very great point, and I agree with him, so I'm going to paraphrase him here. Usually, bullies actually have a lot of friends, and sometimes the person being bullied is the one with no friends, while bullies work together in packs. Remember how in the original Jumanji, a group of 6 bullies were all gaining in and picking on one kid, and that kid was Alan.
Alan!
What, are you sick of annoying Dog Walker now, are ya? Give me a break. Or how about Back to the Future? Biff has an entire gang. And before Marty McFly makes his move and tries to get Lorraine to fall in love with him and all this stuff, in the beginning of the 1955 segment, George McFly pretty much has no friends and he's being picked on by a whole gang, and it just happens to be led by Biff. Usually it's a whole group of bullies picking on one victim. So usually it's the victim that has no friends. And this just proves my point about just dissing out that bullies are just completely horrible people. We're the cool people, we like to have fun, it's cool to have friends. You're a bully because you pick on us and so you have no friends. Cool Cat pretty much says that multiple times in this movie. And to me that just sounds like that Cool Cat's the bully. That's right, Cool Cat is the bully and Butch is actually the victim.
What a twist!
Because there are also several bullies in this movie where Cool Cat actually tries to reason with them and go, hey, you want to be my friend? And he does this with pretty much every single bully in this movie. Except for Butch. None of the characters even give Butch a chance.
It's silly.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to comment on that. So Butch ends up finding some conveniently placed paint and decides to take it out and go graffitiing.
Ouch! That dumb wind blew paint in my face. That's what he gets. My daddy calls that payback.
So does my daddy. In fact, my daddy says, what goes around comes around. That'll show him.
Really? You're really going to promote that kind of saying? Payback, what goes around comes around? I personally find that stuff to be really rude and pretty offensive, honestly. Because stuff like payback or getting you back or getting revenge basically means that you've been picked on or bullied or something, so you're gonna bully them back. And isn't the point of this movie to avoid bullying?
There's another one.
Wow.
I thought you guys were sitting here to make more of these signs. But no, they just randomly materialize in bushes apparently. No need to use computers or crayons or textures or pencils or paper or any of that stuff that you could actually use to actually make these things. They just randomly materialize in bushes for ya.
Now that is groovy.
Who the hell says groovy anymore? It's honestly lines like this that made me think that this movie came out in the 90s. Now, I'm going to be honest, I've been complaining about pretty much every few seconds and every bit of dialogue in this entire film, and if I continue going down this path, we're going to be here forever, so I'm going to fast forward a little bit. So Butch finds 2 more boys, and he decides that he wants to tell them that he wants to graffiti with these 2 boys. They don't like the idea, and they still agree with him for whatever reason.
He's about to graffiti our neighbor's wall. And it's not cool to paint on someone's wall.
Yes, I definitely agree that the editing for this movie is terrible. Now, I'm going to be honest, whenever I film these videos, I make a lot of mistakes. Sometimes I flip a... kind of like that. I often usually forget my takes or I might accidentally flip my tongue or anything like that. If I make a mistake, I'll start from the beginning of the sentence again, and then I will re-say it until I get to the end, say it correctly, and then I'll get rid of those mistakes in post-production, which is why I have so many jump cuts in my videos. That is me taking out all those mistakes. So as you can probably tell, I make a lot of them. And yet, I actually managed to edit these out. So if a 16-year-old can do this at a regular basis in pretty much all of his YouTube videos, why can't a movie do this? That's right, a 16-year-old teenager is better at editing mistakes than this movie. And I make videos on YouTube!
Stop! In the name of anti-graffiti! Cool Cat to the rescue!
Oh wait, you're about to cross the street. Aren't you gonna look both ways first?
Cool Cat's so brave. Yeah, he's a real crime fighter.
Hey, stop, Butch! Stop!
Or you can just run across the road off screen. That will work too. So Cool Cat catches two of the bullies, except for Butch, he runs away, and he decides to give them a bit of a pep talk and explains how he cares for him and loves them because he loves all kids.
You know, my parents have a saying, with friends like that, you better not have any enemies. So why do you want to paint the wall?
Because nobody loves us. We tag in other people's things so that they know we were there. Nobody cares for us. That's why we do it.
Oh, no, you got it wrong. That's not the truth. The truth is, there's a lot of people that love you and care for you. I know because I love you. I'm Cool Cat, and I love all kids.
Thank you for caring about us.
You know what? I have a saying. True integrity means you do the right thing when no one is looking. In other words, be cool when no one's around.
Sure would be nice to have a scene like this with Butch at some point in the movie. And yes, we all love that moment where a grown man comes outside of his house and sees a grown man in an orange anthropomorphic catsuit screaming at young little children in front of a camera and then immediately turns backwards and walks back inside his house and hopes his daddy's not noticed. That is one of my favourite moments in the entire movie. It is just so perfect. Couldn't you have retaken that shot? Honestly, this has got to be one of my favourite cases of accidentally filming something and then keeping it in the final cut of the film anyway for everyone to laugh at. This is probably one of my two favourites. Its only other competition, in my opinion, is the infamous Stormtrooper smacking its head on the door in Star Wars.
Take over.
And honestly, I can't even blame this guy because if I was in his shoes, I probably would have done the exact same thing. But one thing that does annoy me about this scene is how the kid's going, no one loves us, no one cares for us or any of this stuff. And I thought this was Butch's idea. Isn't it sad considering that these two kids that only have a few minutes of screen time in the entire movie have more character development and motivation than Butch, who is in the movie for nearly the entire film's running time? And oh my goodness, the shaky cam in this scene drives me crazy. Now I know there's a very large difference between handheld cam and shaky cam, and this is obviously handheld cam, but would it have been too much to just get a tripod?
I think every kid has something special inside of them. They just have to discover what it is.
Yeah, but again, if your name is Butch, apparently that's not the case. Oh, and also, you forgot your lines again. Now I'm just going to ignore the fact that the cameraman just really loudly breathed behind the camera. The thing that really annoys me about this scene is, holy crap, what the hell are you doing, Cool Cat? Okay, remember in my Alpha and Omega review, I complained about how I found the Moonlight House scene really disturbing, and I made a joke about it? I think this might be worse! So now we come to the shocking revelation that Cool Cat is an anthropomorphic cat with an anthropomorphic mother and a human father. I don't know what to say to that. Honestly, it's stuff like this and the Catnip newspaper that makes me question if this movie is even for kids. Also, anyone else notice that in between scenes that Cool Cat's clothes completely change? Actually, this is something that happens a couple times throughout this movie. Cool Cat is in one location, and then he goes to another location just a few minutes to hours later, and yet he's in a completely different set of clothes. Seriously, could you imagine in a scene that's all supposed to take place in one day and someone just changes clothes magically in between takes? That would just be stupid.
Yeah, my belly feels great.
I'm actually really creeped out by the way Cool Cat's mouth moves in this scene.
Look at me, I'm surfing the web.
Who the hell does that? I don't know a single person that ever decides to start dancing or singing whatever just because they're excited about the fact that they surf the web. I myself use the internet almost every single day of my life, and not once have I ever done this. This is just embarrassing.
Wow, I got an email from a John Doe. But I don't know a John Doe.
Didn't you learn anything about opening text messages from strangers?
Maybe he just wants to be friends. I'll click and see.
I guess not.
You have A fat nose? And you smell like a dirty dog? What? I'm getting bullied in my own house?
Now we come to probably the most hypocritical moment of the entire movie. Well, at least one of them. There's several.
I could write something really mean, but I don't want to do that. Plus, whatever I write could stay on the internet for a long, long time.
And immediately after saying this, he does...
If you were nice, you would have more friends. And friends are cool.
He's basically giving this bully a reaction, which is exactly what these guys want. And if you give what the bully wants, it's going to encourage them to go and do it again because they like the reaction you're getting. They want attention. They want your reaction. That's why they're bullying you, to get your attention. So if you give them attention, they're going to keep doing it. And also, the message that Cool Cat sends this guy is a complete assumption. He's just sending a message assuming this guy has no friends. But for all this guy knows, this guy could have hundreds of friends. Okay, but again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Cool Cat this time has a legit reason for saying this. Let's see what he has to say.
My parents said I should always be cool and tell the truth.
But considering Cool Cat once lied at the beginning of the movie, that would indicate that sometimes Cool Cat does tell lies. So that makes him a bit more untrustworthy. And also, I've come to realize that just because something may be true, doesn't automatically mean you should say it. There are some things you should never say, no matter how true it may be. Why? Because these things can be really, really insulting or really offensive.
I hope this email puts you in a good mood.
I don't know about anyone else, but I personally feel that a message that says that you would have more friends if you acted a certain way would probably put you in any other mood other than a good one.
I'm a bully and I'm gonna get you tomorrow? Oh no!
Also, Cool Cat has nothing to worry about because this bully never shows up. Not only that, but within the very next scene, he completely forgets about him.
This must be dreamland.
Wow! Really? I couldn't tell by your Comic Sans font in the opening of the scene. Wait a minute. He's stating that this must be dreamland. And that indicates that Cool Cat is aware that he's dreaming. And he also seems to be in control of it. Holy crap, Cool Cat can lucid dream! Now, I don't care about anything I just said or am going to say. That is legitimately cool! But then again, if I wanted to watch a movie about lucid dreaming, I'd just put on Inception.
I'm gonna learn to stand up for myself. Yes! That's a great way to stop bullying. Stand up for yourself.
And do what? Just stand there? And let the bullies kick the living daylights out of you? Yeah, sounds like a great plan. So Cool Cat and Derek Savage decide to go to Hollywood. Cool Cat changes clothes again. They get a phone call. One simple phone call that is only a few seconds long. And then they go all the way back home again. What was the point of that? So now Cool Cat goes on to tell his mother cat that he's going to be in the Hollywood parade. Well, that definitely sounds like something that has absolutely nothing to do with the plot. I'm glad we're going to skip over this and get straight back to the bullying sequence, and this is just going to be a glossed over thing, right? Right?
Wrong!
So then after that, Cool Cat goes on to tell Maria about it.
You will not believe what happened today in Hollywood. I was cast to be in the Hollywood parade!
You're joking. That's fantastic. When is it happening?
It's happening in a couple of days, but... Oh, no! I just realized something. I've got a lot to do before then. What should I do?
Just do it!
So the next day, Cool Cat decides to go and brush his teeth, and break the fourth wall in the process.
Can I have some privacy, please?
So Cool Cat decides that he wants a new car and a new song to go with his performance in the Hollywood parade. So Cool Cat and Derek Savage decide to go onto the computer and write up a whole bunch of random lyrics. And, big shock, the lyrics are terrible.
Cool Cat loves to play drums!
You do love it. You're really good on drums, too.
What? Really? We never saw any of that! Although seeing the massive big hands that Cool Cat's got, if we actually got a scene where he tried to play the drums, the sticks would probably just fly out of his hands. Truth be told though, I really wish they did make that scene because that would be hilarious. And one thing I've noticed is that I was really curious, and so watching this movie I actually paused at this moment to actually quickly read the lyrics of the song. In this small little shot I've noticed that every single paragraph is literally the same paragraph copy and pasted 5 or 6 times or so to resemble one 3-minute song. And so now we get the pleasure of hearing the actual song, and the lyrics are absolutely nothing to what we actually just read. In fact, I wouldn't be too surprised if the lyrics were made up on the spot. That actually makes a lot of sense considering a lot of the lyrics are sung in gibberish. One thing I've seen a lot of people joke about is the fact that this scene was usually mostly probably filmed just for the sake of Derek Savage showing off his signed guitar, something that no one is going to care about, especially not a kid. So after we get out that song, in the very next scene, there is another musical number in front of a terrible green screen effect. Not to mention there are times where he actually has it in front of a blank green screen. And truth be told, honestly, if you have a public video where you are standing in front of a green screen, you can't just have that kind of video in public and expect nothing to happen. But truth be told, the way how he tries to tell kids how green screens work is pretty funny.
Wow! Now we're in the green screen room. This is really awesome. But how do I turn it on? Which button is it? Well, maybe it's this one. Or maybe it's this one. No, maybe it's this one.
Now, I personally own a green screen myself. It's sitting right here, right next to me. So as someone who uses a green screen himself, I know for a fact that this is not how green screens work. But anyway, despite this, we get another drawn-out musical number right after the last one we just saw. And it's really pointless and really stupid. Not to mention, it's completely wasting our time because this has absolutely nothing to do with the plot. Well, neither does a Hollywood segment. And so now we go to see our anthropomorphic Cool Cat, who is in elementary school age, and yet he's driving a car.
They see me rolling, they hating, patrolling and trying to catch me riding dirty,
And so Cool Cat decides to go off to the rest of the Hollywood parade and show us some of the more iconic cars that will also be in the parade.
It's the Back to the Future car!
I know this is a really minor thing to complain about, but I can't tell you how infuriating I find it when Cool Cat calls the DeLorean from Back to the Future the Back to the Future car. It's called the DeLorean. If you're going to compliment my favorite car of all time, can you at least give it the proper name? It's called the DeLorean. Damn, I love the DeLorean from Back to the Future. But in this moment's defense, there is one aspect of this moment that I do absolutely love. It's reminding me that I could be watching a way better movie.
There's no ghost here, and that's because the Ghostbusters car is here.
Yeah, and it's a good thing too, because by the time I'm finished with Cool Cat, we're going to need the Ghostbusters. And so now we get to the actual parade scene, where we see either the car or Cool Cat strolling down this massive long aisle, and it's just this really big, long, drawn-out sequence that feels like it goes on for an eternity. It doesn't help that throughout the entire time, there is a screaming girl sound effect, and it is incredibly annoying, and it's playing the entire time. But around halfway through the scene, we get something that I think is really peculiar. We get a really weird message at the bottom of the screen talking about Cool Cat and Derek Savage and Christmas. I feel like that Derek Savage just took some sort of straight-to-TV Christmas Eve thing that played on TV once, and he just shoehorned it into this movie because he thought it was cool. But really, it has nothing to do with the plot. It has nothing to do with bullying, and I feel like that the only reason why it exists here is just to pad out the film's runtime so it can reach the hour and 15-minute mark. So in my opinion, this scene doesn't need to exist, because this is real life. So finally, the Hollywood parade sequence all comes to an end, and we finally get back to the plot. And in this, we come to my favorite scene in the entire movie. The scene where Cool Cat and Maria decide to go out and hang out and play with Eric Estrada and Vivica A. Fox, played by Eric Estrada and Vivica A. Fox. Seriously, wouldn't it have been too hard to just come up with some code names for these characters? Because by not changing your names, you're basically getting two celebrities to essentially play themselves. This is definitely a scene where we get some of the most iconic moments of the entire movie.
There he is!
So Cool Cat and Maria decide to go and play in the sandpit until, Butch comes into private property and he begins to continue picking on them. As he picks on them, he decides to do something diabolical. Kick a sandcastle over that clearly only took like 30 seconds to make. Okay, this is something that I actually only just came up with right at the top of my head just a couple seconds ago. This wasn't even in my script. But now that I really think about it, they're actually making a really big deal and real big fuss over the fact that Butch just kicked over the sandcastle. And if it was a really big, extravagant sandcastle, I would get it. But you literally just put sand into a bucket and then tipped it over. And then he just kicked it. If you can make it so quickly, why are you making such a fuss over him destroying it? Can't you easily just rebuild it when he goes away? Sure, it would be a bit annoying, but you're making a really, really big deal out of it. But anyway, Butch kicks over the sandcastle, which leads to my absolute favourite moment of the entire movie.
That kid kicked sand in Cool Cat's face!
Guys, I know this joke was already made, but I could not resist. I had to remix this.
That kid kicked sand in Cool Cat's face! That kid kicked sand in Cool Cat's face! That kid kicked sand in Cool Cat's face! Cool Cat's face! That kid kicked sand in Cool Cat's face! That kid kicked sand in Cool Cat's face! That kid kicked sand in Cool Cat's face! Cool Cat's face!
I had way too much fun editing that. So eventually, Butch decides to go away for whatever reason. And then we get our new piece of advice from Vivica A. Fox. Okay, admittedly, now since this is a much older, much more experienced person who's actually really successful and is not elementary, hopefully she gives the right advice.
People used to pick on me, and then I learned how to react. I learned to empower myself. In other words, I quit being scared of the bully, and I yelled at him to leave me alone. And I yelled very loudly.
One time, a bully was picking on me, and they said some terrible things, and none of it was true. Then, they posted it on the internet.
Oh no! They put lies on the internet? That's terrible!
Cool Cat, if you only just realize that people put lies on the internet and you think it's this brand new, shocking thing that very few people do, you are going to need a serious reality check.
Always tell your teacher if someone at school bullies you.
Whoa, wait a minute. What did Eric Estrada just say?
Always tell your teacher if someone at school bullies you.
Tell the teacher when you're being picked on at school. And tell a trusted adult. Holy crap, they finally got something right!
Leave us alone right now! I'm telling you yelled at me!
Wow, that was easy. So now we come to another segment that has nothing to do with the plot, where Cool Cat decides to basically write a story. Why? Because there's some sort of competition, and if he wins it, he will win $100. And he makes a really big deal out of it, but when you really think about it, $100 really isn't that much. But like I said, this is just filler, because it has nothing to do with bullying. It's another useless subplot. Honestly, if you're going to have a subplot in a movie to pad up the film's runtime, that's fine. But you need to have it connected so it parallels with the main plot of the story. And when you get towards second/third act, they interlock within each other. So that way, it justifies existing. It would also allow your two plots to connect, which will basically mean they are both required and they're both one part of a much larger story, and it will make the whole narrative feel like this big web where everything's all connected. There are some movies out there like Terminator 2, Die Hard, Zootopia, Inside Out, Back to the Future, and many others, and they deal with subplots so well that it doesn't even feel like a subplot. All these scenes like the musical numbers and the Hollywood parade scene and now this are all really disjointed. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some good can actually come out of this one, unlike the musical numbers or the Hollywood parade scene. It's about Cool Cat writing a story. And this actually does leave some potential about maybe increasing English skills. Maybe you could teach kids about how to write a good narrative, like about the 3-act structure, introducing conflicts, and overall writing a good story. You wouldn't have to teach kids how to write Shakespeare or anything, but you would be able to give them the extreme basics of writing a coherent story. So this actually might be some of the best advice in the movie. So, what kind of story does Cool Cat write? He writes a story about Trolley the Trout making friends. I basically read you the entire story. This entire 10 to 15 to maybe even 20-minute long segment quite literally goes, Trolley the Trout makes a friend. Now what? I got writer's block. I'll do a random exercise and waste everyone's time. Oh, another idea. Trolley the Trout makes another friend. Okay, go to sleep, wakes up. Okay, I need one more conclusion for my story. Oh, I got it. Trolley the Trout makes a lot of friends, and it's my best work to date. That is quite literally how the story plays out. And somehow this pathetic story actually wins the competition. My only theory as to how he could have won a competition with a story like that is if he was literally the only contestant in the entire competition. Only then will I buy something like that. So yeah, this scene is also useless. Let's just skip it.
Wow, it's such a beautiful day. And I love to have fun on a beautiful day. But what should I do? I know! I'll do my exercises! Jumping jacks!
It's a beautiful day outside. Let's celebrate by exercising inside. Yes, I know this joke has already been made before, but come on, it's true. So we then see the fakest teeth brushing segment ever made as he leaves the bathroom in a clearly reversed shot, which would never happen in real life. Wouldn't it make more sense just to leave the shot? Here, let me fix that for you. That's better. So Cool Cat decides to go outside and play with his friends, and gives a pep talk about always looking both ways before crossing the street.
Always look both ways before crossing the street!
Which is quickly followed with him quickly darting across the road without looking both ways first. Oh Keanu, it's great to see that you're staying above 50! Well, you know, another movie I'd rather be watching. In fact, I don't think there's ever a moment in this entire movie where Cool Cat looks both ways before crossing the street, which makes Cool Cat a massive hypocrite.
This is a special news report. Kids beware. There have been several robberies. Bad guys are stealing candy from babies.
Usually when I hear that phrase in movies or TV shows, it's usually used as a joke, or a way of saying how they're about to do something that is going to be incredibly easy. But I've never heard people legitimately say they're going to do it. Wait a minute. I thought babies don't have that kind of food. Considering babies when they first born, their mouths are really, really gummy, and they have lots of problems eating actual food. So what I really want to know is what kind of parent thinks it's a good idea to actually give that kind of food to their babies? And spoiler alert, the thief is Butch. But honestly, if Butch is actually stealing this stuff from babies, I think he's doing the babies a favor.
He has to be stopped! Where did he go?
I don't know. I can't see him anywhere. It's like he vanished into thin air.
Oh no! Butch has taken the candy! I have to stop him! I'll look for him. Is he to my left? Nope. Is he to my right? No. I guess he vanished into thin air then. So Cool Cat finds Butch, again, and talks down on him, again, and to stop him, runs across the street without looking both ways first, again. Gee, and I thought the story from Sonic 06 was repetitive.
Oh no! It's Cool Cat, and he's back!
Gotta go fast! Gotta go fast! Gotta go faster, 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 faster! Moving at speed of sound, quickest hedgehog around. Got ourselves a situation, stuck in a...
So Butch is now arrested by the police. And now let's try and look at this situation from the policeman's perspective. So he's a policeman and he's in his car and he's on a patrol and he's just driving around and he sees around an 8-year-old kid or so who is running down the street panicking and screaming for dear life as he's running and being chased by a grown man in an anthropomorphic orange cat suit and is chasing after him. And the cop decides to arrest the child running for his life. Makes sense to me. Although it actually legitimately makes sense if you think of this policeman as a T-1000. Because I've actually noticed that policeman is actually a really popular choice for T-1000s for some reason.
They should make a kids movie about you. We'll name it Cool Cat Saves the Kids.
Oh, great. More fourth wall breaking.
The first thing you're going to find is a healthy lunch waiting for you in the kitchen. Mama Cat's waiting for you, so just get on inside, guys.
Okay, I actually just skipped it because it really wasn't that important. However, Cool Cat actually just had breakfast literally a few minutes ago. And while they're having lunch, Butch is apparently released from prison due to the lack of evidence.
The candy crook has been released. There's a lack of evidence because the crook ate all the candy. So the police were forced to let him go.
Let it go! Let it go!
But despite this news, Cool Cat and his friends decide to go out to the backyard and play a game called Treasure Hunters. And while they're out playing it, they find a very, very conveniently placed gun. Wait a minute. They find a gun. Oh boy, I better get the bad advice counter ready.
Should we pick it up and take it home, or should we hide it? I don't know what to do. I'm confused.
Alright, the bad advice counter is up and ready for its next point. Now we just need Cool Cat to seal the deal.
No. The first thing we need to do is to stay calm and don't touch it. Then we should tell our parents and teachers about it.
Oh, wow. Never mind. False alarm. For once, Cool Cat actually gives some really good advice in this movie. Only took you like over an hour. For once, we get some really, really good advice talking about the fact that if you find a gun in your backyard or anywhere really, you shouldn't touch them. How did the gun get there? Seriously, how on earth did the gun get there? If he saw it like somewhere down the street or something, then it would have made sense because he said he saw one on a policeman just earlier that day. So maybe if he dropped it, that would have made more sense. Except for one thing. It's in the backyard. A lot of people have actually come to theorize that it actually belongs to Derek Savage and he just accidentally left it somewhere in the backyard or something for Cool Cat to find. And yeah, that's the most plausible theory. I could go on all day about how it's stupid that they find such a conveniently placed gun, but it's just one of those things where it happens, don't ask any questions, just move on. But Butch finds the gun because he's in private property, again, and he decides to pick up the gun, carry it, and use it as a death threat so he can steal people's lunch money. I don't know about anyone else, but I think that is really, really stupid. So Butch ends up stealing the gun, and Cool Cat decides to tell Derek Savage about it. So he ends up talking to Butch's father about the gun, and the father does absolutely nothing, and then the next day, we see that Butch is at the school with the gun, showing it to other kids. And they think that the safest thing to do is walk right to the school where the gun is. Oh, it's great to see the bad advice counter back. The movie felt naked for a second. So Butch is caught and arrested by the policeman. Again. And Cool Cat wins a whole bunch of pathetic awards and all this other stuff from all these previous subplots and yada yada yada. Who cares? As well as one of the bullies that just got arrested just a couple minutes ago, coming out and saying that they learned their lesson. Wait a minute. This kid that's saying that he learned their lesson, this actually looks like the same kid that Cool Cat reasoned with the graffitiing back at the beginning of the movie. This could just be me, but it looks like that the actor is different from coming out of jail than the actor who goes into jail. Also, the mother of this kid decides to rescue him from jail, but apparently Butch is still in jail. Okay, I don't care about anything else I've just said about Cool Cat calling Butch a bully, but that is going too far. But, again, let's just ignore that. And they start giving the proper advice, well, at least some of it. They still give some bad advice, like talking about yelling to the bully and think that that will just do the trick. But Cool Cat does bring up the final point about saying ignoring text if someone's cyberbullying you. Just ignore it and move on. So I do like how this final scene does actually correct some of the bad advice that I was pointing out earlier in this review, which is sort of redeeming quality, but the really bad advice was really more hammered down than this actual good advice. So no, I'm not going to remove any of the bad advice counterpoints. So we get some good advice, some bad advice, and then we come to probably the shortest end credit sequence I've ever seen in my life. Seriously, I timed it. These end credits is only a minute long. So that was Cool Cat Saves the Kids, and it is amazing. No, I'm quite serious. There are so many problems and so many things to make fun of in this movie. It's just mind-blowing. If you want a movie to make jokes or memes about, then you should definitely give this movie a look, because this movie has so much material for jokes and memes. I can definitely see why people call this movie a guilty pleasure. But as funny and entertaining as many things to make fun of as there is, I do have to admit that the movie does have some really serious problems. For starters, it fails as an overall movie. Now yes, the cinematography is terrible, as well as the terrible sound recording, the editing is terrible, and all these other technical problems. But these are things that I can sort of excuse, because these are technical problems. And I heard that this movie had the budget of a ham sandwich. So technical problems is something that you can excuse and push it aside if you can complement it with good story and characters. But that also fails. The plot for this movie is so terrible, I can't even call it a plot. This movie honestly feels like a series of 20-minute shorts all about various safety bullying topics, and they are all just strung together into 1 hour-and-a-half long project, and he just categorized it as a movie. And honestly, considering that's how this movie feels, I don't think you could have gotten any lazier with the plot if you tried. And like I said, half of the subplots don't even have anything to do with bullying. You can scrap the musical numbers, you can scrap the Hollywood parade, and you can scrap the story writing. The movie would be a whole lot shorter, and it would make more sense because all these other bits do have more to do with bullying. The characters in this movie are dreadful. Now, I can't be too harsh on the acting because most of this movie are mainly just child actors, but even then, if you direct kids well, you can have really good child actors in a movie. Edward Furlong was fantastic as John Connor in Terminator 2. So was Dakota Fanning as Coraline. With good directing, even child actors can give a good performance. Then we come to the writing, and dear God, the writing is bad. The characters are extremely one-dimensional. And Cool Cat Maria are pretty one-dimensional as well. Not to mention that Cool Cat is extremely hypocritical. He's always giving advice to kids on how they should act and behave, and then immediately turns around and does the exact opposite. And this makes him a really bad role model for kids. And then we have all these other issues that we all like talking about and complaining about, like the genetics of Cool Cat's family, the plot conveniences, the plot holes, the bad advice, and all these other things. And then there's the worst aspect of this movie. The lessons. This movie gives lots of advice about stopping bullying and how to prevent it and all these other issues. And yet, a lot of the advice is really, really bad and is more likely to increase bullying than it is to stop it. I can count on one hand how many times the movie got the lessons right. But, despite all the criticism and for the sake of being optimistic, does Cool Cat Saves the Kids do anything right? Well, it actually does. The child actors are given what they're given and they do their best with it. And I actually kind of feel like that maybe one of the reasons why Cool Cat gives so many bad advice throughout the movie is because they're trying to build a character arc for him, so he learns the lessons. While I do think that really does fail, like it should be more gradual, and for this kind of movie, you should probably just skip the character arc and just get to the point. But I see what Derek Savage was trying to do. I like the idea that he was at least trying to give him a character arc. I just don't think that for this kind of movie, I don't think he needed it. It's great to see Derek Savage follow his passion. I love movies, and I want to be in the film industry one day. And so seeing him actually just grabbing a camera and going out there and doing what he loves to do, so I salute Derek Savage for, at the very least, going out there and doing what he loves. It's just a shame that he's really bad at accepting criticism. And hey, at least his pet project got to see the light of day. And some people may disagree with me, but I honestly think the tone of this movie was really well done. It's bright and colourful, it's bright and happy, and if it wasn't for the bad lessons, I would honestly think that the movie was just harmless for you to show your kids while you're working or something. The movie just has a really innocent tone. And I'm gonna be honest, thank God this movie isn't animated. Now, yeah, I know that we all like to joke about the genetics of Cool Cat's family, but really, ignoring that, I'm honestly really glad this movie's live action. And the main reason why is because we're looking at actual people, and yes, the cinematography is pretty terrible, however, at least we're seeing actual people having a proper conversation. And so, in that kind of case, I honestly think the movie is a lot more watchable than it could have been. Considering the budget that this movie has, if this movie was an animated movie, the animation quality would probably have been the same quality as something like, say, Food Fight. And probably the biggest praise I can give this movie is that it actually encourages kids to go outside and play. But admittedly, this exact same year we got the Peanuts movie, which does the exact same thing. So yeah, never mind. And thank goodness that this movie wasn't released in theaters. It's pretty glad to know that this was a straight-to-DVD movie, and my goodness, could you imagine if this movie came out in theaters and competed against Star Wars The Force Awakens? You could imagine how that would have turned out. Star Wars The Force Awakens, another movie I would rather be watching. Because despite all the positives, this is still a terrible movie. This movie is so dumbed down, it treats kids like idiots. There's a comedic game reviewer on the internet who is really funny. However, he made a video where he showed this movie to his younger kids that are under the age of 10. You know, the movie's actual target audience. And even they knew something was incredibly wrong about the movie. It was basically like an interview. Like, this guy was asking them questions about the movie. And most of it were the kids answering the questions / reviewing the movie. And the results were hysterical. It's a hilarious video, and I highly recommend you check it out if you haven't seen it. But at the same time, this also makes me really angry because it just reminds me that kids have a brain. The reason why I love other animated / kids films like Inside Out and Zootopia is not just because they're great entertaining films that kids can enjoy, but they're also very smart and very mature. These movies respect kids' minds in different ways. This movie doesn't do anything I just said. It basically takes a hammer and really slams it on kids' heads and really tries to get the message across. The message of the movie's hammered in so hard, it really becomes obnoxious. And the messages themselves are pretty terrible. The movie gives really horrible advice, like opening text messages from strangers. There are problems with the movie that makes you want to avoid showing it to kids because of the bad advice that's in it, which is basically doing the exact opposite of what it's trying to do. Okay, so it fails as a kids movie, but what about the whole guilty pleasure stuff? What about the whole, it's so bad, it's good? Like, you want to watch it out of irony, just out of entertainment for us older people. Even that kind of fails. We only laugh at the jokes because the other critics already made those jokes, and so we're really just watching the movie, and we basically just have the other review in mind. And so it's really just a better experience to just rewatch the reviews. The reviews themselves that make all those jokes is a lot funnier because the movie itself is a totally different experience. While watching the movie, you may be reminded of the jokes and the comedic elements, and yeah, there are times when I did laugh at the movie out of irony. However, the problem is that I watched the reviews and the jokes made me laugh hysterically. When I was reminded of the jokes watching the actual movie, and those reminders were just sort of like a quiet chuckle. Honestly, just go and rewatch the reviews because the reviews are a much more pleasant experience than watching the actual movie. It may be so bad it's good at first, however, it gets really obnoxious, and the longer the film goes on, the worse it gets. And by the time you're at the halfway mark, or even sooner, you're just in serious pain and you just want the movie to end. My friend Sawyer Sable stated that he watched this movie 5 times. I don't know how he survived. So it fails as a so bad it's good type of movie, and it definitely fails as a kids movie. And so, even though there are some things that you can laugh about it, that's mainly just because they're jokes made by people who are legitimately funny. So I have no choice. Let's be honest, you guys all saw this coming. Cool Cat Saves the Kids absolutely gets an F! Guys, I really do have to apologize because I really am usually not this angry in a review. Yes, there are things I may laugh or joke about, but overall, this is a terrible movie. Even out of irony, just rewatch the reviews. This movie is just a complete waste of time. Don't see this movie. I only recommend it to those who want to review the movie themselves. But apart from that, just stay clear of this movie. It is not worth your time. Now, if you ask me, I'm going to go and watch some legitimately cool movies and marathon the first 4 Die Hard movies to undo the damage this movie has done to me.